There are so many gardening tips out there that it can get a bit overwhelming, especially for beginning gardeners. Fortunately, many of these tips can simply be ignored without any downside at all. I started a series called Gardening Tips You Can Probably Ignore to help you identify gardening practices you don't have to implement and products you don't have to buy, and in the process save time and money so you can focus on what really works. Today I'll share 3 popular gardening tips I think you can ignore. I know I do. The first tip you could ignore is to follow those companion planting charts when planting your garden. I'm talking about those complicated charts that claim to show what plants like and don't like to be planted next to. For example, supposedly tomatoes like to be planted next to basil and carrots, but not next to fennel and radishes. These supposed likes and dislikes are often inconsistent from one companion planting chart to the next, and they're not backed by science. But the real downside, especially for beginners, is that these charts make garden planning so much more complicated than it has to be. Planting a garden can be complicated enough with real-life considerations like crop rotation and the sun, space, nutrient, and pH requirements of various plants. Adding supposed likes and dislikes to the equation makes planning exponentially more complicated and possibly overwhelming for a beginner. Now, I often recommend growing in polycultures, which are interplantings of a broad diversity of plants in a given area. Research has found many benefits to this practice. It attracts beneficial insects, including pest predators, and it makes it more difficult for pests to find their host plants. People sometimes ask me what companion planting charts I follow when planting my polyculture beds, and the answer is I don't follow any of them. I've always ignored them, and I recommend that you do too. They're not backed by science, and they make garden planning so much more complicated than it needs to be. The second tip you could ignore is to add molasses or dried molasses to your garden beds to feed beneficial microbes, especially bacteria. While it's true that it's a good idea to feed beneficial microbes, and molasses will do this, there are better and cheaper alternatives. So what happens when you add molasses to your garden soil? Bacterial populations can change dramatically depending on the soil conditions, including the availability of food. In fact, they can double every 20 to 30 minutes, but they also can decline very rapidly. Adding molasses to your garden soil will create a rapid and temporary spike in the bacterial population as the bacteria devour the new food source. But once that food source is depleted, the population will quickly die off. So is there any real benefit in this rapid and temporary rise and fall in the population? Not really. Yes, the dead bacteria will improve soil structure, provide food for other soil organisms, and release calcium and iron from the molasses as they decompose. But as I mentioned earlier, there are better and cheaper ways to accomplish the same thing. All you have to do to promote a healthy population of beneficial microbes is to add compost and organic mulches to your garden beds. Compost and mulch not only feed beneficial microbes, they also provide a habitat in which they can thrive. And unlike molasses, compost and mulch provide a slow, steady release of food for microbes and promote a stable microbial population rather than a sharp rise and fall. Finally, you can make your own compost for free and use only free organic mulches like grass clippings from untreated lawns, chop and drop garden waste, leaves, and wood chips. So save your molasses for the kitchen and instead feed beneficial soil organisms with compost and mulch, which is hopefully something you're already doing. The third tip you can ignore is to never water when it's hot and sunny. The idea behind this tip is that the water droplets that form on plant leaves will act like little magnifying glasses to focus and intensify the sun's light and burn your plants. Now, it is true that it's best to water in the morning because you'll lose less water to evaporation. But it's not true that watering when it's hot and sunny will burn your plants. Hundreds of scientific articles have examined the causes of leaf scorch, but none of them have found midday watering to be a cause. In fact, drought is the biggest cause. So the best time to water a plant that is stressed from lack of water is now, even if it's hot and sunny. So in general, it is best to water in the morning, water deeply, and as much as you can, water the soil instead of the foliage. It's also preferable to not water in the evening because doing so can promote fungal diseases. But if your plants are showing signs of drought stress, the best time to water is now. And if it happens to be hot and sunny at the time, don't worry. The drops of water on your plants won't act as little magnifying glasses to intensify the sun's rays and burn your plants. So it's okay to water if you need to. Well, I'm a little short on time today, so I'm going to stop at just 3 tips to ignore. I'll be back with more videos in this series this fall and winter. My hope is that these videos will help you avoid following tips that probably won't help you or your garden, and that you'll save time and money in the process. To learn more about why I think you can ignore these tips, please see the description for links to my sources. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more videos on how to grow a lot of food on a little land without spending much or working harder than you have to.